So
And guess what? There's no issues, Gab. Woo.
hey, there was about 5 minutes ago because Jim didn't know where to pick. So
Yeah, well, remember go live. You can't go live. You can't go live.
yeah. Oh, I was saying we do it every week.
Well, remember go live. You can't.
Oh, there we go.
There's the echo.
All right. So the echo is now gone. As we're waiting for me to see us on here, which I already see us. Let me just continue that quick little comment, gentlemen, as our peeps are coming and joining. Is that so? Monday, I'm taking the train, I guess, to Fredericksburg from Rhode Island, and then I'm training U.S. Marshals Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Stafford.
At the Rappahannock Regional Training Academy. Do you know?
I don't know where, but it is in Stafford. Yeah.
Let me know, because I live in Stafford, so I'm very excited, and Jim's going to be here bringing his Corvette down.
Okay. So we are getting together either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday evening. Okay. Probably Tuesday, because Monday, I don't think I get into like 8 p.m. my train. So we'll plan. And Tuesday, my classes end at 4:30. So we're definitely.
I'm free on Tuesday.
Great. Let's do Tuesday.
All right. Everybody out there in TCG Tribe Land, make note right now that Tuesday evening, 3 of us are going to be physically in the same geographic location.
That is so cool.
And if you all fancy jumping on a jet and swinging by England, I will make everybody put up a couple of English breakfast.
I think you should jump on a jet and swing by Virginia.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to force me to bring, as I have a couple mics, we should probably do something together.
I'm down. We can definitely do that.
I'll think about it.
Okay. Either we can do it there. I'm staying at a hotel, so I could probably lock down a room or an area.
Just come to my house. This is.
We're going, you got the studio there. You got that beautiful
unless I flip the camera around this way, then you see the dining room table I sit at my big window overlooking the backyard. Yeah.
You guys don't want to see anything around mine. That's all you're going to get to see right there.
Isn't that the funniest thing? Because, even with Gab and with Robin, and with me, we all see the same thing every single week. What exists beyond the Zoom light?
Kitchen.
Oh, look at you. Look at you in a window.
Yep. So there's the bay window. I keep a blanket on the bay window. You see my lighting.
All right. Okay. Since we're sharing, TCG Tribe members, this is rare because we don't do this. All right. Let's see if I can share without busting everything. There's a bunch of stuff. Oh, there's some lip glosses on the table. There is a very cool picture up there that I adore. And then let's see if we come around this way. Oh, well, there you go. You get my medals. Oh, and you can see us in there.
And so my timestamp I do on everything, and you all watch the show a lot. What I always put right here, and Jim's book is on the way, by the way. That'll be there next.
Yeah.
I always put the current book I'm reading, because I just finished Discipline is Destiny.
Okay.
And what my kids gave me for Father's Day is the Lego Millennium Falcon.
You know what's really interesting there? You've got the Millennium Falcon on display on your bookcase there, and Lena's got Indiana Jones down, if I remember correctly, down and slightly to the left. Yeah, just behind you, you've got the Indiana Jones doll. And the music for Indiana Jones is actually the same music as Star Wars played backwards. Did you guys know that?
No.
Yeah.
What? No.
Straight up.
No.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, and you speak French too, Gavin. Come on.
Only a little bit.
I got to research. I don't know whether to believe you or not.
Well.
All right. Okay, guys, it is 6:34. I see people on. We got some likes. Show us some love, guys. Hit us on some likes. It's a very special evening tonight. I'm Lena Cisco. You know who I am. We'll kind of bebop around and do a quick intro into who everybody is here. Then tell you what we're going to be talking about tonight. As you can see, we have a very special guest joining us. I'm super excited because I haven't seen this guy face to face, well, virtually, in a very long time. So super, super excited. I feel that ever since Robin, you came into my life, I have been able to reacquaint with a lot of my old colleagues.
From Phoenix, I know.
Yeah.
And it was a small world because Jack Schaefer and I have been such good friends for since 2001. I think I met him when I joined the team, and I did my first behavioral consult with him. And then I remember when he went to Phoenix and was still working with me doing undercover training at the FBI. And I didn't realize you two, Jim and Lena were with him at excuse me, Phoenix, because I read John Nolan's book Confidential is where I first saw the first stuff on elicitation outside the FBI. So small world. And then Gavin came along with, I still don't know the story between Lena and Gavin. And that's the next one I got to discover.
That's
I don't remember.
highly classified.
That's it. It's highly classified.
I've deleted it from her memory.
He did the wand. It's gone.
That's the
I'm like,
one,
I
yeah.
can't remember.
Look at the pen.
Well, I call it old age, but anyway. All right, everybody. So you know who I am, Lena Cisco. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining in tonight. We have to my right there. I don't even know how it's showing up on your screen. Anyway, on the screen, you see Gavin Stone, Robin Dreek, and James Pyle, as we like to call him, Jim. So I'm going to let everybody go around and do a quick intro. I don't think I need one anymore. You know who I am. So I think I'll toss it over to Gav. Gav, you can toss the ball to someone else and do a nice intro. Also, gentlemen, tell our viewers where they can find you. So all your, we'll revisit it again at the very end.
Sure, brilliant. So, right, Gavin Stone, former civil servant for the British Ministry of Defence. I've worked as an intelligence officer and in the security and intelligence industry for around about 20 years on and off, doing everything from close protection, intelligence gathering, covert surveillance, perimeter testing, you name it. I've had a go at pretty much everything. Work with some great people, and you can find me at gavinstone.us. There's also a YouTube channel. Twitter, I believe, is at author Gavin, and Facebook Gavin Stone author. And being cheeky to save the best of last, I will throw it over to Robin.
Awesome. And Gavin, you just had a new book come out, right?
Oh
Tell
yeah,
us about that. Yeah.
I don't have a copy here. I've given them I
Okay.
don't even have a copy
I
of
do.
my own
It's
book.
on my desk. I know it's around.
So yeah, sorry. Have a look on Amazon and all the leading bookstores. Oh, there it is. How to tell if somebody is lying. Nice and simple. And there you go. Paperback or ebook.
Yes.
So, thank you. Over to you, Robin. Oh, and
Yeah,
Jim.
there's another one.
Hey, thank you, Jim.
Awesome. My name's Robin Dreek. I'm doing my new podcast intro. I just added one thing this week. So former United States Marine, spy recruiter, best-selling author, because I never talk about my 3 books I have out. And I only mention that because my last one, Sizing People Up, I actually just got Beyond the Advanced, my first royalty check this week. And I want to thank my friends in Poland, because I am a huge bestseller in Poland with that one. And trust expert. So I spent my career after the Marine Corps, FBI, I ran our counterintelligence behavioral analysis program with the friends of Jim and Lena, Jack Schaefer, Joe Navarro, and those folks, and we strategized recruiting spies. Before I retired in 2018, I've had my own company for a number of years. I taught our training center, counterintelligence training center, and there you go. And find me at peopleformula.com, the podcast, which I try to direct everyone to, because that's really where the gold is, because of amazing guests like everyone on the show. And Jim, I'm interviewing him coming up. His episode will be out probably in about a month or two. And so that's Forged by Trust, and free courses through there as well. And lean in and listen, because the first level of Forged by Trust is the amazing guests. And then, as I was describing to someone today, if you want to dive a little bit deeper, you can watch what I do if the camera switches on it to see me. Anyway, to you, Jim.
Okay. Obviously, I need to work on a presentation, an introduction. I'm just an old guy that's still doing what I used to do. I was Army interrogator, interrogation training, strat debrief trainer. I've been doing this since 1984 to present. I've been teaching and training all over from coast to coast, all the services, and I really still know stuff. And I want to share that stuff with folks, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But I'm just glad to be here with this group and mindset of winners.
Yes.
And he also
And sorry I didn't have a
wrote
chance to put yours up there.
cool book right here. Just want to pass that by.
Yeah.
Okay. Robin, I need to get your books.
Oh, I'll send them to you. Send me an
Why don't I
address.
have them? All right.
That's the first one.
Okay.
That Gavin's
There
got the
it is.
first.
All right.
You know, that little one is, I'm claiming my bestseller off that one. I had sold like, I'm at 120,000 or 130,000 copies of that little book, believe it or not.
Oh my word.
That's impressive.
And that's self-published. That was crazy. So it's, yeah, I know. My other two publishers can't even come close to what that little thing has done. It's crazy little book.
Wow. Awesome. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to be monitoring comments. So if anybody has questions for any of us, I am make sure, oh, look at everybody's piping in. I'm going to make sure that I am monitoring all the comments and making sure that your comments and questions get to these amazing people. You can ask me as well. So with that being said, Gav or Robin, let's kick off the topic of conversation this evening. What are we talking about?
I would like to, if you don't mind, go into interrogation a little bit, because I was talking about Jim not so long back, and I did say he's got the kind of voice where you just want to sit in an armchair by an open fire, drinking a cup of hot chocolate or something, and just listen to him talk and then tell him everything. And then when you think you've told him everything, he carries on talking and you tell him even more. I don't know. I think if the military could kind of bottle your voice and sell it to every intelligence officer and interrogator out there, I think that they could kind of fund themselves for the next 20 years, Jim.
Wow. Yeah. I think my interrogation voice really came from my sales voice, which preceded my military service. And what I found out when I got into the Army, when I became an interrogator, was it's just sales. And I just transitioned from selling the cemetery property, something everybody needs and nobody wants. And, you know, when you sell on commission, if you're hungry, you work hard.
Yeah.
And so that's what really got me where I am today, to transition to interrogation, to transition to training interrogation. It was a matter of feeding the family. It was a matter of survival. It was a matter of accomplishment, you know, and coming along. So that the voice, I'll credit my parents for that. And but the listening ears, I credit the people I've learned from how to do what I do, because that was really the biggest key. And you guys all know, it's absolutely, you have to be the greatest listener, not the greatest talker.
Definitely. Can I jump in with a quick question before I pass it over to Robin? Because I'm curious about something when it comes to plots. And I heard a rumor here in the UK not so long back, and I've never checked it out to find out whether it's true or not, that you only actually own a plot for 150 years. And then it's kind of sold on or something. I'm not sure how it works, but is that the same over there in the US, or is that a fallacy, or is it actually true?
Well, all of those things can come to play. I was in Mexico back in 1973, and I saw gravestones that had the date on them that was after the date of the time that I was there. And I asked somebody about that. I said, well, that's when we take the remains out of the grave and sell it again. So that's a different thing. But in the United States, you don't own the property. You don't own that land. You don't own that space. You have bought the rights to it, the access to it, and it's yours. You're there, and there's no statute of limitations. I loved working at the cemetery. I had a lot of people under me, and they all looked up to me. It was great.
Oh wow, that's brilliant. That's
I think I'm the only one who caught that.
No, I got it. I was trying to think of a really clever response, and response, and it wouldn't come. I was going to say something about putting the flowers up, but it wouldn't come out quick enough. So right, I've stolen the line once long enough. Robin, over to you, sir.
Was anyone watching me while I was listening? To see what I'm saying?
No, I was paying attention to comments.
Good. And so, and for those tuning in, Gavin and Lena were saying that they've actually studied my nonverbals to see when I come up with my question I'm going to ask.
And we know it. We nailed it.
So, Jim, I actually have two, but I'm going to be a good interviewer and only ask one at a time. I had one, but you said something just a few minutes ago that fascinated me. If you're hungry, you work hard. And that means that you had a pretty interesting, challenging childhood. which I think probably gave you these skills to really value relationships above all else, because in order to have that kind of mindset, there's some deprivation going on. So how did you grow up?
Wow. I was born in the Midwest in Illinois, uh, actually 3 weeks before Charlie Brown. I just found out Charlie Brown was born October 8th or something like that.
Oh my God.
And I was born 3 weeks before him in 1950. And and also a year before rock and roll music. So that's how old I am. But I was raised in Southern California. I had my Wonder Bread years out there. And my folks had moved there from harder times from the Midwest and go west, for great opportunities and such. But that never really developed. The household was not the best for kids. And so I got my first job as a shoe shine boy at a barber shop, because my dad had gotten a gift for Christmas, a little shoe shine box. And I said, there's money in that box. And I took it to the barber shop and I polished shoes for quarter a shot. And that was my first job that I ever had. And but in order to have anything, I had to work for it.
Right.
If I wanted anything, I had to work for it. And my parents couldn't always give the things that I wanted. So I learned to work. But then also when I got married and had a family and they had to eat, I had to work harder. It wasn't just for me. And there was a big challenge when I got to Southern California. I'd been in the funeral home business. I'd been in the cemetery business back in Illinois, but Southern California was the next great opportunity. And I made good with that, selling something everybody needs and nobody wants.
It's a fascinating trend that I'm seeing, and only because I identify really hard. I know that all of us here do with this, with a challenging upbringing. I have found personally, matter of fact, I'm even thinking about writing an article or a book on this one, because I know the world is all about how do we innovate and solve problems with innovation. And I really thought about this innovation thing. In order to innovate, you have to feel safe. And it was humbling the other day when I thought to myself, I'm not an innovator. I can't. I am not in it. What I am is I'm a grinder. I love other people's innovative ideas. I'm going to grind with it just because of my upbringing. It was a struggle to constantly work and provide and be self-reliant and resilient. My mind wasn't working around seeing corners that no one else could. It was really grinding and working hard. And it sounds like you were doing the same thing, because we're too busy surviving, too busy providing for our families to really think of new innovative ideas. I was a pallbearer in New York, and I was a pallbearer in New York because after 9/11, one of the pallbearers in my Marine Corps League died in 9/11. He was a Truck 6 guy that died down the World Trade Center. I took his place as a pallbearer. I mean, it was literally, doing all you could to provide for your family, like you said. So I'm curious, when you were that young and you're shining shoes to provide for yourself, what was on your mind that you're going to do next? What was the dream and aspiration? Because I doubt it was, I'm going to be one of the world's foremost interrogators.
No, I was going to be a race car driver. And
okay, why?
Yes.
Why? It's a really good, I like your question. Okay. Because my brother and I, back in 1963, we had listened to the radio ear to ear to a GE electric clock radio, one speaker, and we heard the Indianapolis 500, and we listened to that broadcast for 3.5 hours, spellbound. And we were never the same kids from that day on.
Wow.
And car racing made us interested in cars. And I credit car racing and cars for keeping me out of trouble, because everything I ever earned and spent went into a car and nothing else. And my brother and I were both going to be race car drivers. We both did a little local racing at Ascot Park in Southern California, just jalopy stuff, but it was just what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be. And that worked for a while.
It was interesting. It's all coming together again in your book, as you talk about how you and your brother tore apart your dad's car. Because of, as everyone knows with all of us, you had this theme of, and you talk about it as a master interrogator, you have to be curious, and you were curious under what was under the hood.
We wanted to see stuff. We wanted to see parts. We didn't want to just look under the hood. We took tools and started taking that engine apart. And about 2 hours later, my dad realized it's real quiet in the house, and that's suspect. And we were in so much trouble. But that's just part of that package of who I was then. And to this day, I still follow racing and go to races, and still hold that little thought of what could have been. But I wouldn't trade it now for where I am and who I am and what I've done. And my good wife, bless her heart, she's still putting up with me. She's a big part of my retirement program. She still works and has a few more years yet with NGA here in Springfield. And and people that I know, I'm a composite of everybody I've ever talked to, everybody I ever set.
It's me or
No.
Jimmy, you froze there for a second.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Good now.
No problem.
You're saying you were a composite of everyone you ever met.
Right. And so I've whoever I've sat at their feet, whatever I've learned from anybody and everybody, people I've worked with, Lena, we worked down at the Mio down in Demnick, and Cliff Ruggles. I've worked with him for 18 years. Cliff and I still work together, and we'll be down to Fort Bragg in a couple more weeks still.
Yeah.
And so I'm a composite of everybody. And so I'm just Jim Pyle. I'm Jim Pyle and everybody that's standing behind me.
And I'm going to ask only one more question, I promise, because then I got to bounce to Gavin. I really apologize for monopolizing.
Bounce it to me.
I'll bounce it to you, Lena. So here's the question that as you answer it, it'll bounce to Lena, because I think this becomes really evident here, and you've said it multiple times, and that is you're a composite of everyone, which requires immense humility.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fact. It becomes a challenging balance and dichotomy, I think, when you're so young and self-reliant. So you have to provide for yourself, but at the same time, you had the awareness that you knew you couldn't do it by yourself because you were sucking in information from everyone. Were you doing it back then, or did you learn along the way that it takes a village?
It wasn't part of my makeup early. No, that's what I learned, I think, from my experience in the military, because you can't do what you do, alone. It's so with that, I think that's where I transitioned to the team, to the concept that we're all together. You can't just have human. You just can't have SIGINT. You just can't have, everything works together. Mm-hmm. All the services work together, and so I think that came from a military discipline.
Aha moments, Lena.
Yeah. And, that's an aha moment for me as well, because when I was younger and much less mature, I'm going to say emotionally mature, mentally mature, whatever, very green. And Jim, that's when you knew me. I felt like I have to prove myself. I'm a female in this, in this role and blah, 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 blah. I got thrown into a lot of stuff. People thinking I could do all this stuff. And I'm like, I've never done that, but now I have to do it. And so I always was like struggling to prove myself to everyone, which came across a little differently than I had expected. And instead of being that empathetic person I needed to be, especially in a facilitator teacher role, I became, I think, a little demanding, directive, and also a little arrogant and not that nice. And it wasn't until I learned a valuable lesson that Jim just talked about. Ask for help. You have this tribe of people around you who want to help you, who are there to support you, that you can learn from, and it is a-okay. But back then I was like, oh, no, I can't ask for help. People expect me to do it all. I got to do it. Because now I'm choking. I'm tickling my throat. But you can't ask for help. Mm-hmm. And it's just the best way to be.
We encourage that actually on the TCG tribe. We've got a great group of people, a brilliant community there. So we try and get people to if they have an issue with anything. So
now I'm gonna have a coughing attack when I'm mute.
I'm gonna jump in with a question.
Yep.
Quick for Jim. I'm looking on the shelf behind you. There's a couple of pictures, and I think one of them is his master's voice with the dog there. And just below that picture, on not the next shelf down, the one before, is that a clapboard from a movie?
Yes, it's not from a particular movie, but I've been doing some acting since I've lived here in DC, and we hired a lot of actors over the years to role play,
Mhm.
and so we've used a good cadre of actors, and I realized to myself, you know what? You guys have been playing in my backyard. I'm going to go play in your backyard. And my very first opportunity to do some background work was with the House of Cards. From the very first episode, I was in every season background somewhere for the whole run of it. And then I began to do some other work. I was up in New York City for what was the show that Gotham.
Oh,
I was a ballroom dancer in Gotham, and I don't dance for nothing. Okay, but the camera was all up here, so that was good. But also, I've done acting. I've done some. I did a public service announcement for Department of Defense, Protect Your Every Day, and as soon as that thing hit, I started getting calls from everywhere. I see you on TV. I said, yeah, maybe so. But, so I've just done some acting, and it's a clapboard. And I used to hang it out on my door here to let people know I'm in a podcast or something. But that's just you're a trained observer. You see what's now. Now here's the question that I've asked as a trivia question that only one or two people in all these years have ever answered correctly.
No.
In the picture there with the little dog, RCA dog, what is he sitting on in the picture where it talks about his master's voice?
yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think he's on top of a table next to the gramophone, isn't he? But is there
He's looking into the gramophone, of course. He's hearing his master's voice. I learned this at Fricky Funeral Home. I was reading a magazine called Casket and Sunnyside, and it was a story about the dog and the story there. His master has died, and sitting on a casket with his master's casket, he's hearing his master's voice in the phonograph.
Yeah.
And so that's the trivia question you can ask that most people won't get.
Wow.
What's he sitting on? And of course, that goes back to my older days at Fricky Funeral Home in Lincoln, Illinois. And I was a nobody guy. I was there when nobody was there. I did what nobody else wanted to do. And if I could help it, I didn't mess around with nobody.
Oh my God. Hey, Jim, I have a couple questions, guys. I'll just kind of filter in really quick.
Okay.
Number one, somebody wants to know, Linda wants to know if you have your own YouTube channel. I don't know if you do.
I do not. And
Okay.
I can tell you that by the end of the month here in October, I hope to launch a website to
Cool.
start there
Okay.
called Conversation Codex.
Oh,
And time-tested models for contemporary communication. And that's where I think that I can really do my best work forward. Back in July, I'd already told Cliff, Cliff, I already told him that I'm going to wrap it up at the first of the year, and I'm not going to work as much. As a matter of fact, I'm seriously thinking about doing that complete retirement thing. And back in July, when I went out to Las Vegas for the Behavior Panel Live
yes.
conference,
Yeah.
I had a head-on collision with the rest of my life.
Ah.
And I said, you know what? I know stuff.
Mhm.
I still know stuff, and I can still do something with that stuff. And so that's what I've really have a focus on now. I want to help people who aren't comfortable with conversation be comfortable.
I love that. I love that.
That's the Navy SEALs adage, right? Learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Well, I wanna
Exactly.
help people who are uncomfortable with conversation to be more comfortable with conversation, and not just introverts. Extroverts need help too, because they tell me all the time, I can get a conversation started, but I can't go after that one little bit of information. I can help them. And then extroverts, they talk to think. Introverts think to talk, and that's how come they don't get along sometimes. But they really can be a great team. So I want to work on helping people communicate, and I really have a laser focus for trying to find my way into the conversation with 911 dispatch operators. who have the same
Brilliant.
mission as, they have the same mission as interrogators,
They do.
except they don't have much time. They only have seconds and minutes to make a difference. Interrogators might have days and weeks and months and years, but they only have seconds and minutes to get accurate, actionable information. And sometimes I listen to the 911 calls and I cringe because they're tied to a script, and that time is wasted asking, structured questions instead of discovery questions, which should come natural. And it's not natural for everybody, I know that, but I like to make a difference somewhere out there with that focus.
I love that you said contemporary conversation. Never heard that. I love the Codex. Oh my God. And discovery questions. A lot of times people don't know what that is, but that's exactly that perfect, clear, concise question to get to the answer. When I'm teaching classes and questioning techniques, I tell them, ask for what you want. Right? They'll fluff around and I'll say, and I'll do a little exercise, Jim, and I got this from you, but when we used to work together in Phoenix, right? I do the round robin before I teach questioning. And it's about a class of 30 students. I said, listen, you've known me for a day and a half. Ask me a question. I'm going to be honest. I will answer your question, but I'm going to answer the question you ask me. So inevitably, there's always one person that says, Lena, where are you from? And I say up north. And they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. I'm like, then ask me what you want to know. So the next person will be like, Lena, where do you live? I'm like, in a state. And like, that's not what I meant. I'm like, ask me what you want to know. I'm like, what is it you want to know? And then they'll blurt out, we want to know the name of the town that you were born in. Then why didn't you ask me that?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like
Sure.
retraining the brain. Just ask for what you want. That's all you have to do. I digress. Let me do one more thing. Brian said and offered up that your amazing interrogator voice might come from your days as a DJ. So he said that. And also Sarah wanted to know, she had a question, and it might be for, I guess, anyone on the panel here. So she was in a difficult conversation with her boss, and he was avoiding a lot of eye contact. And she felt at the end of the conversation that he was withholding a lot of information. What tools and techniques could she use to help him draw out that information? And you guys may have it now. We may want to revisit it, but that was one of the questions for technique specific.
You want to take the lead on this one?
The what?
I was saying, asking Jim if he wants to take the lead on this one.
Okay, I'll jump in there because I tried to put myself in that situation where I'm talking to her boss. Okay, and he's not making eye contact. Okay, I guess my first inclination would be to go silent.
Yeah.
And then he would have to look at me and want to know what's up. And the silence is a great tool that most people never use. Most people never think of. People are mostly afraid of silence. Okay, now combining the two comments you had there, when I worked in radio, WBCE in Wickliffe, Kentucky, 1010 on your radio dial, Merle Haggard coming up at the top of the hour after CBS News. Handsome Jimmy James Pyle Esquire, just another pretty face wasted on radio. But,
I love it. I love it.
So I learned to talk to nobody, and actually I was talking to everybody without anybody being present. So I think to spin that back around to the silence, so it is a great tool, and most people are afraid of silence. On airtime, 3 seconds is dead airtime is an eternity. That's why everything blends in, commercials, conversation, music. There's never a break unless something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
But so that silence then would require that person to have to look at me, and I'd say, I'm concerned about whatever the situation is that she had in her mind, the conversation she was having. She just needs to refocus her concern and have him engage visually, and then hopefully that reestablishes the eye contact she's looking for.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Silence, the most underrated tool that there is.
Yeah, I tell you, I always teach when I'm teaching my classes, I'm like, listen, enjoy the silence, like the Depeche Mode song, for those of you from the 80s and used to listen to that. Just embrace it. And they're like, yeah, but wait, what do you do, Lena? They're not talking. You're not, what do you do? I said, I look at them. I smile.
Yeah. Too easy.
I don't have to do anything. I'm waiting for you to respond. And I tell them the first one to break the silence loses. It's not
Yeah,
going to
turn it into a game. Exactly. That's what I do. Yeah, you're not going to beat me.
right. Yeah. And at some point, and I've been in interviews where people are like, what? And then I'm like, but you're talking. You said, at least you said something, right? Because I love the ones with like, I'm not talking. I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, I just said I wasn't talking. Well, you are. How do you want to do this? And then but anyway, there's so many ways to get around it, but enjoy the silence. We don't always have to be talking.
Yep.
Love that. My questions are done. We can go back in.
Robin, over to you.
Laser-like focus. Jim, you've mentioned it a few times. And I know we want to share with the audience some skills and tools that'll help them, especially if you're in a situation where your boss is obviously uncomfortable with something with you. And I know that the what questions are fantastic for uncovering specifics. And so what can someone do to have a more laser-like focus?
Well, have a plan. Okay.
Describe a plan.
Plan to fail. Have a plan of what you want to accomplish with the conversation. Know who you're going to be talking with. I only had one person in my whole experience in dealing with bosses and stuff that I could never enjoy and engage a conversation with. And that was a boss I had between Phoenix and the company that bought Phoenix. And the gentleman in his office had nothing. He had a desk, nothing on the walls. He never had a picture of his family, nothing but a pad of paper, his pencil, his desk, and a light on the desk. And that was, I strive for data. I look for data. I look at over Lena's shoulder there, and I see data. Okay. And then Lena, by the way, the book You're Lying, 2 months ago, I was at the Spy Museum, DC, and it was in the main window of the bookstore part of the new building.
Yeah.
It was in the main, it was right there in the front, right there for everybody walking by coming to the museum. Okay. And so I said, well, I know her.
Publisher's dream.
I didn't know this.
And, so I'm always looking for data, see? And I'm teaching my daughters. I've got 2 daughters, both in college now. And they're the last little rascals, no more after that. And, I'm teaching them to look for data. If I see a car with all the stickers on the back, I tell them, what would you be able to talk to this person if we pulled them over and we talked? What would you talk about? And look at that. When the people are walking down the street, they're wearing something that has logos and stuff. Pay attention to that, because that's something to talk about. That's what they want you to know about them. And that's where you start the conversation. I work with a lot of I don't like to say introverts, because that's just the Myers-Briggs thing, but people who are not comfortable to openly talk to people they don't know. And so I tell them, look for data, and then just one of the things I do is to tell them to do a drive-by. Okay. Walk by somebody. Don't say, how are you? Nice day. What? Say something about what you see. Something you see is, if it's just a logo or something that says Pittsburgh Steelers. Somebody's a Steelers fan. That's a provocative statement, maybe. And they might say, yeah, I love the Steelers, or no, my wife gave me this shirt. But they said something to you besides, hello, how you doing? And you'll just keep walking on by. And then next time I tell them, do that again, except this time have a hit and run, where you stop, talk to them, and then move on about something. And so I have a progression that goes all the way down the line to actually a roadblock.
Ah,
Okay. But that's a progressive thing that I try to teach. But if you have a plan, who are you going to talk to? What do you want to talk about? Keep it on track, and ask yourself, what questions should I use? What elicitation, which is a greater skill set and a more functional, progressive thing to use, elicitation. But I'm the guy that wrote the book on questioning, so I guess we should talk about questions. But really, it's simple. Be curious. Ask a simple question. Ask it like Lena says. What do you want to know? Not just kind of what you want to know. Be more specific, and don't be afraid to ask questions. People sometimes think that they're being too nosy or they're being in your business. That's how we keep information going back and forth, and that's why we have conversations for information. And that's you can't get it without it.
You'd mentioned a great conversation. So what makes a great conversation to you? What do you enjoy about the conversation?
I have a question that it's my mantra. If I looked at you, Robin, I'd say, what do you know that I don't know that I wouldn't know if I didn't ask?
Right.
Okay, I might not know you at all, but that's that's what's going on in my head. And then I say, what do you know that I don't know that I wouldn't know if I didn't ask? And that requires us to ask questions, to listen to the responses, and then to ask a follow-up question, a more particular question. It starts out wide and then narrows down, much like a hourglass. Mm-hmm. Conversations start way out here, but then all of a sudden they get down here more specific. If it's business, that's where the business happens. And then we kind of fall away from that. If it's personal, that's where the personal questions happen, not at the front. Most conversations shouldn't start with a question, really. A greeting, a statement about what's going on, where you're at, who you know. But then when questions come down to get actual information and information exchange, those questions should be very specific.
I love it. Jim, I have another question if I can jump in real quick.
Sure.
And then Gav, I'm going to punt it over to you. I think it was Linda, I think had the question, is Socrates a role model for you?
No.
There you go. All right.
Specific question, specific answer.
Yeah.
But here's the reason why. He's the first guy that we go back to that questions and who learned a lot by asking questions, but his questions were very vague and very open and not specific. And so he was playing most of the time, in my mind, 20 questions, where you start with the questions and try to get the answer to the questions by asking each various questions and eliminating information or direction. And so that my questioning is more specific, more direct. As an interrogator, you have a very fine focus of light to interrogate, to get all the information that's available and actionable and complete and accurate. And that fine beam of light is not a very good conversation. That's information exchange. It's not conversation. But if you shine that beam of light of questions through a prism, you get a different light view, you get a different focus and a broader application. And so the questioning see, that's the thing about interrogation. There's no correlation between conversations and interrogation because you have a captive audience. Now, if you're going to have a good conversation, you've got to captivate your audience. And with that, you're interested in them. And it's not going to be about you. It's going to be about them and how you make them feel and how you feel being with them is part of that mirror that comes back at them. That make any sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I was talking to one of my students, clients, whatever you want to call it today, and he was trying to, figure out a way to have that first initial sales pitch conversation. Should these people like join the Facebook group, answer 3 questions, and then he has the conversation to try to pitch them to join the coaching program. And the questions were so blah. How many years have you done this? do you want to be that? And another yes, no question. I'm like, you have no data. You've nothing to work with. I'm like, what do you talk to him about? I'm like, you must just like start the conversation and say, hey, I'm Joe, and this is what I'm selling, right? I'm like, you got to get some meat. You got to get some stuff, right? So I said, add a fourth question and ask something like this. When in my professional life have I felt most motivated? What have I done that was the most inspirational thing or something? Yeah. Because now you're learning about them, you're collecting the data to use, and that's what you're going to initiate that conversation with and make it about them. Mm-hmm. It's about them first. Then once you get that likability, you get the trust. Now you roll into, hey, by the way, this is the program that I'm offering, and this is why I think it would be a good fit. This is why I think you'd be interested, blah, 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 right? Get to know them, make it about them. But you can't do that if you don't have the data to work with to initiate that conversation.
Yeah. It's just data exchanges is not a conversation. Yeah. Interests and motivations and requirements, people's pressure points, those are things you need to know to get to the business you want to do or the personal relationship you want to get to.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Let's see. There was, I'm checking my time. Obviously, Jim, you have to come on again because I'm going to save it to the very end because I have something I'd love us to talk about for another session, but let's keep it rocking and rolling. I did want to tell everybody, I've been taking notes, as you can tell, and I've been hitting the top things, Jim, that you've been saying. So I'm going to recap them at the very end. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Good stuff.
Well, I gave a speech last week to some SAICs, business. Didn't you used to work with that?
So I worked for them up until September 30th. And I no longer work with them. I know. Yeah.
I'm a sub under them right now. I go to JC. As a matter of fact, I will be at JC tomorrow. It's a sub under them for behavior panel. Oh, Russia panel. I do with Jack Barsky, the KGB guy, and Dan Hoffman.
Yeah. Great company. Oh my gosh, great company. I was very sad. I was 8 years with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the Brits in the audience, there's a couple of things I want to quickly point out. Jim mentioned earlier the NGA, which is, if my memory serves correctly, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, isn't it? Yeah, that's who your wife works for. And the SAIC, a lot of the Brits over here probably wouldn't know what that is. So do you want to shed a little bit of light on that, Robin? Or
cleared contractors? Just we got a lot of. It's one of the what they call Beltway bandits in this area. There's like my last couple of years in the FBI was in this area in Fredericksburg, Northern Virginia. And part of my job for counterintelligence was helping protect about 500 clear defense contractors to support the government and the military. And SAIC is just one of those companies that does that.
Yeah. And they also, this is so bad. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm looking at my phone. So SAIC is an acronym that stands for Science Application blah, blah, blah. What's the IC? I worked with them for 8 years. I don't know. This is terrible. Anyway, I'm going to look it up. I did wanted to say, Jim, this is the crazy thing. When I worked for SAIC, the last contract I was on, I was teaching leadership to NGA. So I was actually at NGA. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about that? So I have my own NGA badge, everything. And I would go and train pay band 3, which is, your entry level all the way up to your very senior SES level, senior level executives in leadership. So we had the 5 levels of leadership that we would do and a lot of Stephen Covey stuff, Discovery Learning International. I got certified in a bunch of stuff with them and Barry Oshray's organizational systems. And I would go there and actually train. So I'm wondering what your wife does. Maybe I ran into her, but I wouldn't recognize the last name.
I will tell you, it was only a mile and a half from our house. Oh my wife, bless her heart, has the greatest commute in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
She drives through 2 traffic lights to get to work in the morning.
Wow. That's unheard of. That is unheard of.
She can see our street from her office.
Oh, that's nice.
That's the greatest commute in D.C., I promise you.
That is awesome.
We knew they were coming to Springfield, and so she got her job up there when they were still Defense Map, I think. And then they moved down here so she could have just a short little drive. I'll have to talk to her about that, but she's got a few more years there, and they can't do what they do without her doing what she does. I'll leave it at that. And but she's a big part of my retirement program. As a matter of fact, she says that she is my retirement program. But
I love that.
really, really. But how did we get all that? I guess I was at the SAIC last week.
Yeah, and by the way, SAIC is Science Application International Corporation. I knew it was just, but that's what it's saying. Everybody calls it.
I talked to the business development people. They had about 150 people there.
Yes.
And I had to talk to them about something, and I found my contact in the movie The Postman. If anybody's seen the movie The Postman,
I've seen it.
Nobody liked the movie. I liked the movie, but nobody else liked the movie. They panned it all over the place. But there's this old guy.
The Italian one?
It's in America in the
Okay.
future that's been through a dystopian, terrible.
Kevin Costner. It's another Kevin Costner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so the good guys and the bad guys, and they're bringing back the American dream and the American hope, and through the postal service that just happens to be that Kevin Costner happened to fall into, and all of that. But anyway, there was this old guy in the movie, and Kevin Costner said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I know stuff." And that's where I knew that I was going to go with. I said, "I know stuff." And I told them the stuff I knew. Then I told them the stuff I wanted them to know. And then I told them what I wanted them to do with the stuff I told them. And that was the whole ball of wax that I presented to them. But it's a lot about what we've talked about here, conversations, rapport, and all those things that are part of business development, sales.
Yep.
And so we talked about sales and the like. And it was a great thing. And it was my first time out since July to really be in front of people again. Real people, contact people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
So that I was really excited, and I've had lots of feedback from that, and there's going to be some more work come from that. And so I thank them, and I thank you guys for letting me come out here and talk about what I'm doing and what I do, and the difference I still want to make. And I've been working on another book, and we're all book EPs on.
I know.
And after this next book, I won't write any more books because I don't know anything else. It's the last thing
I don't believe you.
You don't know anything else.
I don't believe
today. I mean, you wouldn't be who you are today if you weren't on a journey and not going for a destination, Jim. So yes, you don't know any more today. Tomorrow,
Okay.
You know even more. And if I could, I have so many questions. Luckily, I'm going to have more time with you on the podcast. I'm curious about another thing that you had said. You had mentioned in the book, which I think was really important, and that was, again, it's something I would tell my 20-year-old self if I knew then what I know now. And that was, you said that you took the worst job possible because no one else would.
Yeah,
in the Army, which was teaching the absolute worst course, which was, interrogation 101, which is not just 20 questions, 1,000 questions. And so when did you first of all, where did you learn? I'm going to ask two questions. I'm sorry. One, where did you learn to take the worst job? Because that's advice I've given my son. He's a Marine at the basic school at Quantico right now. Because you want to have great personal brand, take the worst job.
Yeah.
And the second part of that is, so when did you have your epiphany that the world of interrogation is not about 1,000 questions?
Okay. My grandfather, Stump Bagby from Pike County, Illinois, was a great mentor to me as a grandkid. He was the guy I looked to, like a lot of kids do, their grandparents, to get the real truth, the real stuff, and because Dad's too busy working, but Grandpa, he's not working, and he's accessible. And I spent summers with him in Southern Illinois, and he said, "Jim, call me Jim." He said, "You get the job that nobody else wants, and you got job security."
So you got it from your grandfather.
He said, "Nobody will ever fight you for a broom. You grab a broom, and it's yours." nobody will say, I want that job. And so I took that to heart. And of course, he also looked at me and said, one time he said, you watch a lazy man work and you'll find the easy way to do the job. And he was looking at me when he said that. So I think I knew what he thought of me at times. But at the interrogation school, it's 9 weeks of training at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, south and just above the Mexican border in the desert. And I spent a lot of time there. 3 different times the Army sent me there to train and to be trained and such. But the 1 week of questioning course was 5 days, 8 hours a day, 268 PowerPoint slides.
Wow.
On blue background with gold letters and nothing else to look at. Nobody wanted to teach that course, and I took it. I said, I'll take it. And it was mind numbing because we had to do it that way. There was no changing that. But when I came out of the Army in 2004 and began to work with Jerry York and John Nolan and at Phoenix Consulting Group and other folks that came into play, Jack came on board and around, we got a contract to train interrogation outside of the service schools. Marine Interrogation School, Army Interrogation School were the only places you could learn interrogation. We got a contract to teach interrogation for DOD outside of the service schools. I wrote the 10 weeks of the course. We call it the I-10 course. And I wrote the whole program of instruction, and we taught it the very first class out in the bunker at Imperial Beach for the Navy SEALs, off-site of all things at first class. But I said, we can't do this questioning thing the way we did it back there. And I said, I don't need to tell you all the questions to ask in the sequence of asking questions. If I just tell you how to ask questions, and you can apply them to whatever you are, wherever you are, whoever you're talking to. And so I took a 40-hour course and made it 4 hours by giving it a formula of 2
Right.
plus 6 over F times 4. Bingo, bango, you got it. And I won't get into it today. If you want to let me come back and do that. And Lita, she knows that's where I lead into the Santa Claus questions.
I love the Santa Claus.
and so much of us when we were kids should be how we should be today.
Yes.
Because kids are curious and they ask good questions. And that's where I got that. The 2 is being 2 years old again and just being curious and asking simple questions. Kids ask simple questions. Adults ask very complicated, convoluted, overloaded, compound questions, and they miss the point. So I can readdress that someday. But that's where I said we've got to change and make a change. And that's where the book came from. Find out anything from anybody, anytime. And so I wanted to just put that out for other folks. Salespeople, first responders, anybody and everybody can really benefit from questioning well.
Yes.
And so that was the reason I wrote the book.
Thank you.
Good stuff in here too. Question the structure of a good question type, discovery area, so much stuff. If you guys don't have this, you can find out anything.
So Sam at the Body Language Book Club, make sure she promotes that for us. I love Sam.
Okay. Sounds a star.
One other book.
Yeah.
Is my second book that came to play.
Oh, is
Hold
it
it up a
on
little more,
Amazon?
Jim.
I'm getting control of the conversation.
And you know what
Oh,
my
control the
impetus for
conversation.
this was? I said, I spend all my time teaching people to ask questions. I bet I know something about the answers. And so this book is about responding to questions and managing the conversations that come with it. So that's another commercial. Okay.
Yeah, that's really good.
Sam's agreed. She says she'll do a reel with both the books. Also, Linda has put the 4 of us should write a book. The closest you're going to get to that at the minute is Lena's done a section in my book, James done a section in my book, and I'm on Robin's podcast talking about that. So that's as good as you're going to get in that area.
It's funny. That's actually a really
Love it.
good idea. One of the ideas, I have so many, I've had a framework for another book for quite a while now. And the more podcasts I do, the more it changes. And really having, because the amazing people that, I keep bumping into, it's like everyone has a section because all these sections, they're overlapping with that theme of humanity and empathy.
Mhm.
And everyone's got a slice of it from their area of expertise, because the themes as our audience, which is our family, it really is, because everyone tunes into each other. I love it. Is that we're all seeing exactly the same thing: empathy, compassion, and massive curiosity. It's the overarching theme for whether you're recruiting spies, selling plots of land to people that are passing on, or interrogating spies or terrorists or anyone else. It's all exactly the same. It's pretty profoundly simple.
Yeah, I actually mentioned something similar to that to Lena a while ago. Do you remember where I was saying we could all kind of compile a section each?
Yes.
And yeah, so we should discuss that. We should look into that. So
Okay.
my last question for
Okay.
Jim before I while I'm still allowed a little bit of airtime before we go over the hour, Jim, what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you that you think I should know?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Wow. Let's see. Maybe. Let's see. It's easier for me to say that than it is for you to hear.
That's why it's such
Or
a
maybe
good
we're so
question.
awesome we covered it all, so there is nothing.
Very good, brilliant.
Well, I just where I've trained, what I've done, where I've been. Those are all parts. People, places, things, events, and time. Those are the only things you can talk about.
Yeah.
And we all have people. We all have common people in common. Places we've all been. Places somebody's been. Things we all operate with things. You can't do anything without things. And then, of course, we all have timed into time, and we've been common ground with people in common ground, like 9/11, those kind of things. So that just know that there's only 4 things to talk about, and that solves the problem when you say, I don't know what to talk about. Well, talk about people, places, things, or events in time. One of those 4.
I think I remember you telling me once that if all else fails, go to food.
Oh,
Anybody's
okay.
got to eat.
Oh, I have another one besides food. So one of my favorite questions, because again, I probably had 22 different nationalities. I worked, recruited, human sources, whatever, throughout my career. One of my favorite questions always was a favorite family tradition you had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great bonding one, because it doesn't have to be the same, but everyone has a tradition of some sort. And so I love hearing about your traditions. Around what's the holiday, what's the tradition, and where did it come from? And Jim, by the way, you're gonna be talking more about your grandfather when you're on my show. I'm so
I
locked in.
see that. I see that.
But it's another one with food, because it's sensory, it's dopamine starts flowing with it, and if they're then interested, it's an easy exchange of just feel good feelings that you share together. I had this one gentleman, matter of fact, it's in my last book. In the book, his name's Anon, and in life, he talked about his sharing Kashmiri tea with his brother / close relative who's a president of a Middle Eastern country, kind of stuff, really good. And so at the next meeting, I scoured New York City for Kashmiri tea to make sure we had it at that next meeting. And there's a funny story with it and how it spilled all over the place and everything. But it was that effort. It was something that brought him back in time. And it was linked to me paying attention, and we still exchanged. And this was after 9/11. I recruited him, recruited each other, I should say, because we just collaborated on everything. And we're still in touch today. We still get gift baskets every year. So again, relationships are real, and they don't fade out if you're doing them well. But anyway, favorite family traditions. I love the question.
Ask Eric Maddox, the Army interrogator who worked with the Marine interrogator. He's 6th Staff Sergeant interrogator, to find Saddam Hussein. It was not food. It was food that found him. Food that gave him up. And so the food channel is key. You know, if you had nothing in common with a terrorist, you still both eat.
Yeah.
And that might be the only thing you can talk about.
Yep.
But that's a good place to start.
Yep.
Common ground. All right, guys, we are at the bottom of the hour. I would love to just recap just for our listeners, some really juicy nuggets of knowledge that Jim shared. He talked about discovery questions. He talked about having that laser-like focus on something. If you want information, guys, just ask for it. Right? But ask for what you want. Have a plan. If you have a plan, you're going to feel more confident going into this conversation. When you're confident, the cortisol suppresses, right? And at that point, you have a clear mind. And if you don't have cortisol, then you are not popping over into your limbic brain, and you can have more clarity. It can also be more rational in your thinking, which helps you in your conversational skill sets. Another thing is enjoy the silence. We don't always have to fill in the silence. And as the person that's initiating the conversation or controlling the conversation, we need to be able to stop talking as much as we need to be able to ask that perfect question or build that rapport or create a safe environment. Jim says, look for data. I mean, I got tons of data behind me. Gavin doesn't have, well, he's got some maps in the calendar I can't read. Jim's got lots of data. Robin's got some good data, right? Look for data, and data doesn't even have to be around or behind me. It could be on me, right? I have glasses. I am wearing, jewelry, something, but this is data that you can work with. Practice makes perfect. And I love what Jim, I got to find out more about this. Do a drive-by, do a hit and run, and create a roadblock. I love that. I just
mild
love it. Yeah, it's so good. And of course, be curious. And we have that curiosity. Naturally, it makes us inclined to ask questions and to inquire about people, places, things, feelings, emotions, motivations, and all that stuff. And of course, Robin, Gav, we've had this conversation about being, having humility and having curiosity. And those two things just naturally go together for anybody seeking knowledge. And Jim, I don't think you know this, but in my new book, I got these clever little cards today that I'm taking with me to SpyX tomorrow night. Robin, you should be there. And Comic-Con when I do my big event in Manhattan, and can do a little QR code. But Jim, I mentioned you at the very beginning of my chapter 6 on questioning. So I give you props, a shout out, and I mention your book.
I talked to Mary Ann Corinch today, and we talked about that book. So, you guys work together good, and she's the best.
I love her. Absolutely love her. I have another idea for her. She's like, the deal, Lena, get me that 30-page proposal. I'm like, I'm coming. But yeah, she's awesome. So you all will get a copy of this when I finally get it. But wow, what an amazing time. So Jim, when you come on next, we'll have to figure out when that's going to be. I would love to get into controlling the conversation and your techniques, your formulas, questioning formulas, and maybe even have a little discussion about Hans Scharf.
Okay.
I would love.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, okay. I guess I hit something there because we're all like,
again, his book's right there.
Yeah. I would love to. We don't talk about him. I mentioned him and this and that. And I'll bring it up in my study groups, but I would love to have a conversation about him.
You don't have Hans Scharf right there, but there's John Nolan's.
Oh.
No, I'm not kidding. I read it. Where Hans Scharf's book was right there. What'd I do with it? Oh, it is the premiere. I talked about that with Jack Schaefer all the time too. The best example of all. I just got done reading Rise and Fall of the Third Reich as well. That time period in world history was profound. With amazing stories of both horrendousness and humanity, and Hans Scharf was a great example of humanity and how to do a challenging job for the Germans during the worst period of world history.
Yeah.
So great story. Great story.
Well, if you're open to
scenery was the key. Change of scenery was the key, and the interrogation never stops.
Yeah.
Jim, my favorite place to interrogate when I finally caught on to it, because I didn't know in the beginning, was collecting my detainee in the prison and walk through the sally ports with the guards, because they just thought, we're just walking. And I would be interrogating away, no notes. But I was I'm getting this, I'm getting that. And you have no
You're doing the Hans Scharf, going for the walk.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And then when we'd get into the interrogation booth, they'd be like this.
Yeah, yes.
I'm like, we were just talking.
Always bifurcating hey, we're just being social now, and we'll work in a few minutes.
It's too easy to defer and to not engage, but be engaged.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Ends.
I love it. All right. Well, then that's Gab.
I want to scream before we go that Jim is probably one of the most modest people I have ever met. You know, you get him on, he's like, I'm just a guy who knows stuff. Or, you know, you saw earlier we're talking about, I asked him about the clapboard deliberately, and he talks about his acting and then changes the subject. There's no bragging with Jim ever.
No.
He steers the conversation where he wants it to go, and if there's a minute you put him in the limelight, he's kind of he moves it on. So I'm going to brag on your behalf, Jim. And I want you to say you're a great guy, and thank you for being a great friend. Will you come back again soon?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
I think it's a great background. That your upbringing was tremendous. I think it gave you that context of humanity that, you know, was profound, and that it forged you into who you are. There is no doubt, with great humility.
Brilliant. I look forward to when you're on Robin's show as well. So everybody.
Me too.
It'll be great. It'll be fantastic.
I was nervous about the connectivity before we started, and that's I'm an analog guy, and this digital world just tests me from time to time. But I want to tell you guys made me feel so comfortable, so relaxed, so easy. It wasn't anything other than just us four folks talking. And I'm glad. I hope that the tuners in got something from our discussion.
Oh yeah, got a lot of hearts and thumbs up.
There's a lot of love out there for you, Jim. A lot of comments and a lot of thank yous. So on behalf,
it's a great family we're all part of here. I love it. It's become a family. When people ask me who's your audience for the podcast, I describe, you know, Brian Jaffe, Sam, you know, Kathy. I mean, it's mostly the UK family at this point. But no, it's a beautiful community that keeps growing because we all support each other. We all validate how we're all rolling in life, and that's about being about others. I love it. Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, with that, I don't want to take up any more of people's time. Guys, gals, we will be back. Jim you got it here. So he said he's coming back, and we're going to talk about his questioning formula and Harnshock. Jim, we'll find out when is a good Thursday for you, and we'll do this same thing again,
Okay.
probably in the Facebook group or YouTube. It don't matter. So with that, real quickly, I'll let everybody just kind of go around for their final goodbye sayings and reminding people where they can find you.
So everybody will be on YouTube next week because we do this fortnightly, once on Facebook, once on YouTube. So tune us in there, and I think that's everything from me. All the usual social media sites, etc. And over to you, Robin.
So, I'll be with you all again next week. And don't forget, my podcast episode comes out on this coming Monday. This one is with Dr. Deborah Gaboa. She is actually a doctor that actually started out in theater, and she's talking about her stress to resiliency as what we're talking about behavior wise. It's a great episode. Just got done editing it. So tune in for that on the live stream of my YouTube channel, and we'll see you all next week as well.
And for me, Campfire Conversations is going to come on board. That's going to be in cohort with Conversation Codex. I can't tell you anything more about it because it's all in development. It's all being put together, but it's going to be a chance to do what we're doing, like we're doing here, with me a little more one-on-one, or one in whatever the group is there. But
granular
Conversation Codex. When I get it launched, you guys will help me with that.
Sure.
I want to be out there to still do some stuff.
We'll definitely promote it on the show too when you come on. That'll be great.
Thank you.
Sure, definitely. We'll get it on all the pages and everything. So, and a quick shout out to Brian Jaffe, who's the glue behind the scenes. Who is
he's a great influencer, isn't he?
Yeah,
he puts us all in touch.
Yeah,
he pushes the buttons, he pushes all together. Yeah.
Oh my God, he's like glue.
And my shout out to Sam. Someone mentioned, I think it was Kathy on my YouTube premiere on Monday about having Sam, Body Language Book Club on.
Yeah.
Sam, this is an invite. I actually want you on the show because you have a mad skill that everyone wants to have you recognize them. And that's a skill you have. And I'm curious about exploring it. So
Woohoo.
I'm laying down the gauntlet.
Nice. I love it. I love it.
That was great.
All right. With that, everyone, thank you so much for being here. You guys are an awesome family. We will be back, every week with lots more coming your way, and Jim's coming back too. So, and Jim,
Yay.
super, super special. Thank you so much. This has
Thank
been
you, Jim.
amazing. And with that, I am going, I will be signing off on our live. Good night, everyone. Be safe, be well. We'll see you next week.